Welcome to Rise and Thrive Conversations for Greatness, the podcast where personal growth, motivation, and inspiration take center stage. I'm your host, John Merkus, and today we're diving deep into the realms of success and excellence with a special guest. Our guest embodies the spirit of Rise and Thrive, his dedication to leading teams to greatness, and his insights into achieving success in any industry make him a beacon of motivation for us all seeking to elevate our personal and professional lives. Join us as our guest shares his journey and invaluable lessons on thriving through challenges and inspiring greatness in others. Nick Glover, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Mate, intros are one thing, but that is fantastic, mate. How long have you been working on that, honestly?
Well, mate, I know you I know you very well. Now, it's so great to be together again.
Yeah.
Because it's been so long since we've had headphones and a mic in front of each other and been together. Now, I know we're virtually, you're on the other side of the world, you're in Canada, but we're doing it again.
We are, here we are. And I remember those days at 3SA where we used to sit across the desk from each other and just took a load of, you know what, and try and learn our craft, which was, it was eventful to say the least, as I'm sure you remember.
I do remember some of those times. I have so many fond memories, and I did learn a lot through those times. So when we were together at 3SA playing favourites, I was really interested to know what are some of your fondest memories of that time.
So my fondest memories were basically knowing that I wanted to do something, but not really knowing how to do it. And I think in life, that's one of the biggest things that stops people from doing anything in life is the fact that we just don't know how to do it. And so I, sort of scoured the internet, scoured the local paper back then, of course, and all sorts of other things. And I found, Melbourne Radio School. I found Clark Sinclair at 3SA. I made a phone call. He invited me to go along and see him. I saw him. He saw some sort of potential. I'm not sure what. And away we went. And we did, 4 days a week, 4 nights a week in Queen Street in Melbourne, just reading ads, just reading copy. And we did that for 2.5 hours every day, 4 days a week. And then we did radio twice a week on the weekends. So, it was something that you had to commit to 100%. Otherwise, it wasn't going to work. And that's what we do. Yeah, we commit ourselves 100% and we make stuff happen.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but it was quite a commitment in taking action to fulfilling our dreams, wasn't it? So, those 4 nights a week, reading those ads for the voice training, and then those 2 shifts a weekend that we had to do, sometimes solo, often together, and that's why I was saying before, listeners, that Nick and I used to sit opposite each other on the desk and do our radio show and play great music together. Favorites, that was it, playing favorites. And that was a good slogan because you could get to play the old stuff or the new stuff. It didn't matter. We just called it favorites.
Yeah.
I do remember your attitude and mindset. Even back then, I could see that you were going to achieve your goal. It's not something that I can even articulate now, but it was just a presence that I know that you had. And I guess it's because you had that commitment and that intention that was shining through.
Yeah, I think, when you make that much effort into something, like you're doing 4 days a week, you're doing 2 shifts on the weekend, you're away from your family, away from your friends, you're dedicating yourself to something to then, from my point of view, to then not succeed is just something that I can't contemplate. It took me some time. It took me 14 months from start to sort of finish, if you like, when I actually got my first job in radio. But it was a journey that I wouldn't change for the world because it just showed family, friends, and everyone around me that if you put your mind to something, there is nothing you can't do. I mean, I didn't even have an Australian accent. I mean, I still don't really, I have a sort of a hybrid accent. And so to get into radio without the full goods, if you like, again, it's just tenacity, mate. You've just got to keep going. I actually applied for pretty much every single country radio station in Victoria at one time or another, and finally got into a station in Deniliquin, of all places, if you can believe it, New South Wales, and actually started my career in a tiny town called Cobram. Tiny town, population, absolutely nothing. And I did that for 12 months and then got my favourite gig, which was with Edge FM in Wangaratta. And I was there for 5 or 6, 7 years. So yeah, from that point of view, you just have to put your mind to it. And if you do that, and if you do the work, and you say this quite a lot on your show, if you do the work and you put yourself in a position where it can happen, I firmly believe that it will happen. It's the old Bradbury story, yeah? Okay, he wasn't the fastest on the ice, but he put himself in a position that if it all went his way, he could win. And that's my philosophy in life. If you put yourself in a position where it can happen, 9 times out of 10 it does.
Wow, Nick, that's awesome straight off the bat. For those people that aren't familiar with Stephen Bradbury, he's an Australian ice skater that won gold at the Olympics because he put himself in that position and a few people fell over in front of him and off he went and won the gold, which was awesome. I was going to ask you as well, I don't know, you're English, you're Australian, you're Canadian, so I know your accent is a little bit English. We met in Australia. Now you live in Canada. So you're a pretty international man. I wouldn't say of mystery because
Mate, I'm jet set.
yeah, you're jet set. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So what? How many passports have you got? What is your actual nationality, and what's going on in Canada right now?
So I'm not sure how much I can say on air, but I have 3 passports.
Right.
My parents are English, so I have an English passport. I was born in Canada, so I have a Canadian passport. And of course, I lived most of my adult life in Australia, so I have my Australian passport as well. Do I class myself as English? No. Do I class myself as Canadian right now? No. I still identify quite firmly as Australian. I love the place. I have fond memories. I have 2 kids that were born and raised in Australia. I have a lot of happy memories, but life takes you to many, many strange and wonderful places. I lived in Europe for about 4 or 5 years, Scandinavian country, didn't speak the language, but still managed to make the most of it and found a lot of solace in my podcast back then, believe it or not, John. So yeah, I had a bit of a podcast myself, very, very small. I wasn't getting the sort of numbers you are, but it was something during COVID that I did and thoroughly enjoyed. And so I absolutely understand where you're coming from in this regard because it's a lot of fun. But look, I'm Canadian. I was born here. I have a Canadian passport, but I strongly identify as Australian because I think, when you spend as much time as you do in a place and you love the culture, you love the people, you love the way of life, it's very, very hard to walk away from. But having said that, this place is beautiful. Like I'm looking out now at a mountain called Mount Atwell, which is just magnificent. I live 45 minutes away from Whistler, which is top 5 skiing mountains in the world. And I live literally 35 minutes from Vancouver, which is one of the most, to be any more like Melbourne would be criminal. It really would. It's almost a replica. It's beautiful.
Yeah, they do say that Australia and Canada have similarities in the culture. I know Canada has a amazing landmass and different landscapes, similar and different. But I have heard that the people and the culture can be similar. So yeah, good to hear that reinforced. And you're still on the air, which is great. Still doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I went through a bit of a tough time last year, last year with employment and stuff like that, as we all do. Everyone sort of has their ups and downs, peaks and troughs. I sort of reached out to the local radio station here in Squamish. We live in a small town called Squamish. I spoke to the guy there, Darren, and I sort of said, hey, did a few years of radio in Australia, and I'd love to get back on air, part-time only. I can only do sort of 1 shift a week. And literally, we kept in touch all the way through January 2023 until he rang me in early October last year and said, hey, mate, I've got the Saturday shift between 7 and 1 o'clock if you want to have a crack. And I thought, well, I work 5 days a week, and now I'm going to be working the 6th day. Do I really want to do it? But I took it on board. I thought, you know what, let's do this. It's a bit of fun. It's a passion. It's a hobby. I love being on air. I love communicating with people. And I love that sort of that freedom that it gives me. So, yeah, back on air now for, 3 months, 4 months. Yeah, absolutely loving it. I really do. It's a great show. We have a lot of good listeners. We have a lot of good sponsors. Everyone at the radio station is just a joy to work with. So couldn't be any happier, mate, with my real job and my hobby job. It's fantastic.
So there's another testament of you wanted something. You kept in contact with this gentleman, even though there might not have been anything at the end of that, but because you were interested in doing that, you kept in contact and you got the result called being on air in Mountain FM.
Yeah, and it was really discreet too. Like it was just I knew because I listened all the time, so I knew when he was away. I knew what he was doing. I knew what was happening. Because obviously DJs they like to sort of let people know what's happening. And the big one was he went away to the UK for a week or two, and he came back. And I wrote him a very very quick email. I just said, "Hey mate, glad you're back. I hope you had a great time. The team looked after the place fantastically. Did a great job. obviously great leadership. Congratulations, well done. And he rang me like literally a week after and said, hey, thanks for the email. Sorry I haven't been in touch for a while, but hey, got the gig on Saturday if you want it. And so, yeah, consistency and persistence is a big thing for me, as it is for a lot of people. You've just got to, if you really do want something, then you've got to go for it. You cannot expect it to come to you. And that's a big thing for most people. It's a common theme that I've heard in your podcasts. People who achieve good things and great things in their lives, they go after it. They don't wait for it to fall in their lap. They don't wait for somebody else to give it to them. They get out there. They do the hard yards. They really do what they have to do to get where they want to be.
Yeah, thanks for noticing. And also, as you say, for most people, now this is why I think we need things like this, because I don't know if most people have that kind of mindset that you have, and you can learn it and you can plug into it and get inspiration and motivation by listening to a podcast like this or however, whatever motivates you.
Yeah.
But it's really admirable. And I've got to have a suspicion that it's because it comes naturally to you and that's how you operate.
No.
That you might. No,
that's no. You see, this is the thing. People think that people like you and I and a lot of the people that you've had on the podcast, that it just happens. And that's not true. It's not true. Confidence doesn't just happen. Confidence is something that you have to build up over time. Positive thinking is something that you don't just have. You have to continually remind yourself that you are a positive thinker. Giving gratitude to the universe is something that you have to constantly do. You can't just do it once. Go, oh, I'm grateful to the universe, and that's it. The universe goes, oh, he's grateful. Let's just go with that. It's something that you have to remind yourself. I mean, one of the great things I heard you say was that you stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself you're great. You're great. You're great. Well, I give thanks to the universe, and I sort of say thank you, and I have all these wonderful thoughts in my head before I go to sleep, when I wake up in the morning, when I'm in the shower, when I'm brushing my teeth. And there's times and places to do it, and I do it consistently, because you have to remind yourself that being positive it's a mindset. It's not just natural. It is not just natural. And that is, I think, the big problem that people struggle with, is the fact that it is a continuous slog in so many ways. To keep that positive mindset, to change your mindset from, a negative to a positive, it can happen, but you've got to want it to happen. It doesn't just happen.
Nice, and put in the effort. So that leads me. I love some of the things that you post on your socials, and the latest one you posted was, "We're all just a bunch of weirdos trying to figure out what the fuck we're doing here. We're all crazy and we're all struggling. Some of us are just more honest about it." So that kind of almost sums up what you were just saying there.
Yeah. I mean, we have a wonderful, my partner and I have a wonderful conversation on a regular basis, where she tells me I'm weird and I tell her that she's weird, but I think I'm not weird. And she says, well, of course you're weird. I wouldn't be interested in you if you weren't weird, yeah? So the thing is, sometimes how we look to other people is not the same way as we see ourselves. I mean, I certainly don't see myself as a weird guy, but she does. She sees me as a bit, sort of out there, a bit strange, a bit kooky in some ways, because of the things I say and because of the things I do in my life. But I wouldn't change anything, and she wouldn't change me either. So that's a wonderful thing, when somebody accepts you for who you are. And I really honestly believe that we are all tortured children of tortured children. Yeah. Everyone's got a hang up. Everyone's got an issue. Everyone's got a problem. And in life, it's the way you deal with it. Like, one of my favorite sayings is, it's not the problem, it's the way you deal with the problem. And I've tried and live by that as much as I can throughout my life. And hey, it seems to be working. Yeah, my life is not perfect by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but every day I get up, I get dressed, and I show up to work, and I do all the things I have to do, and life's pretty sweet. Can't complain.
I love your philosophy on gratitude and how you enact that into your life. Can you tell us a bit about how you do that?
Well, again, it comes down to what we were saying before, and the fact that you have to remind yourself on a constant basis that gratitude is not something that you can just do once, like the showering, yeah? Like you said, you can't just shower once and that's it for the rest of your life. So I give gratitude between 30 and 50 times every day. And they're fleeting milliseconds. I get into my car and I give thanks for the fact that, A, I have a car. It doesn't matter what the car is, I'm grateful that I have a car. Because as I pull out of my driveway, I see someone on a push bike, or I see two people walking to work, or I see someone who's sitting on the side of the road or doesn't have a job. We have a homeless shelter just up the road from us here in Squamish, and it is sad to see. And I sort of just give thanks for the fact that I drive from here to Whistler to go to work. We have some of the most beautiful scenery in the world. I mean, coming up to Whistler Mountain is just incredible. You've got the big lakes, Daisy Lake. You've got all these wonderful places. And just to give thanks to be in this environment and to do it every single day and to have a car and to get to work and have a job and have two jobs and have a beautiful family and have family all over the world. There is so much to give thanks for, yet some people, they get up every day and they go through their life and they don't think about any of it. They don't think about giving thanks for the fact they have a bed to sleep in, a house to live in, a car to drive to work in. They just take it for granted. And to me, that's pretty sad. It's not a nice, for me, and this is me. I mean, this is just me. I'm not being judgmental in any way, shape, or form. I just find it. I just wonder how they sort of motivate themselves and how they get through life with a positive mindset. Because if you're not grateful for things, I just wonder, what else is going on in your life. Yeah.
I love that, being in the present moment and being grateful for the small things, the big things, the everything, and how often you do that. And I like how you expressed and said, look, it doesn't have to be minutes or, whatever. It can just be moments where you pick up on that gratitude, you remind yourself of the present moment, and that helps you with your mindset. And if we want to get a bit cosmic, I bet you your energy is one of the attracts greatness in your life because you are taking that kind of action in your mind.
Everyone has ups and downs, Sean. Everyone has ups and downs. And I think I mentioned before, it's not the problem that you have, it's the way you deal with the problem. And I have, in my life, developed this 7-second rule. And some people think it's a good thing, some people think it's a bad thing. But I think it's sort of put me in a good position most of my adult life anyway. And the 7-second rule is so simple. Basically, when something bad happens or something happens, no matter what it is, I give myself the first 7 seconds to have a think about it before I react to it. Because I find, in my younger days, I would react too quickly, and a reaction is a reaction. Once it's done, it's done. There's no taking it back. But the way I try and roll is if I think about something for 5 to 7 seconds, whatever the reaction is after that, I own. I own that. It's good, bad, indifferent, but whatever it is, it's on me. You can't say, oh, it was in the heat of the moment. You can't say, it was just one of those things. It's not. I had time. I thought about it. My reaction is my reaction. And 9.9 times out of 10, the reaction is a positive one because I've had time to think about it. And instead of reacting and flying off the handle and getting upset and mad and swearing and whatever, you've got time to think about it and go, you know what? Is it worth getting mad about? Is it worth having the initial reaction that I was going to have? And it's not perfect. It's not fail-safe. But in the majority of cases, 9.7% of the time, or 9.7 times out of 10, it actually works out quite well. And it saved me all sorts of drama and trauma and headaches in my life. So I'm pretty happy with the way that's worked out.
Nick, I love that 7-second rule, and taking that time to just take a beat and then have a think about how you want to handle it or what you want to do that, and then own it as well. I like how you're taking responsibility, but you're taking massive amount of responsibility by using that 7-second rule and saying, I'm just going to take a pause and think about it. And also too, I've been exposed to this concept before. Just because you think it doesn't mean that it's real, or doesn't mean that you have to act on it.
Absolutely.
And I love that kind of analysis that you're doing to go, okay, well, I'm just letting my thoughts be my thoughts.
Yeah.
And then I'll do whatever I'm going to do or take the action that I'm going to take.
And it really stems from my management positions that I had with the bank in Australia and before, having your own business and all that sort of stuff. I mean, when you have staff, when you have customers and clients coming through your business, you have to think about what you're doing. Reputation is everything, not just from your clients, but also your staff. I mean, if you're an absolute asshole to your staff, that information gets out. And in small country towns, you can't have that. And when you work for a big multinational bank and you're training staff to look after clients and be the best person they can be, if you react to every single thing that upsets you in that environment, mate, you're done. You are absolutely cream crackered. So you've got to develop something. And some people do one thing, and that's what I do. I have the 7-second rule. It's not fail-safe. Please don't think it's perfect, because it's not. But 9 times out of 10, between 5 and 7 seconds, just taking that time. And as I said, you own the result because you've had time to think about it. So therefore, what you do is completely on you. Can't blame anybody else.
I love it. I love it. Have you got any other Nick Glover philosophies or things that you're living by like that? You've explained the gratitude. You've got a whole bunch of awareness, self-awareness going on. You've given us the 5 to 7 second rule. What other tools are in that kit bag that you use?
Consistency is a big one for me. Persistency, I think we've mentioned that one before, but also never giving up. So I have a big philosophy in telling the universe what you want. This is a big one for me. It's a really big one, and it's something that I've always hung my hat on. And I can show you many examples of how this has worked over the years. But a lot of people use visual boards. A lot of people have, sort of notebooks where they have notes in. I have a mental notebook and a mental visual board. That's all I have. And I pick something that I want and I keep it in the back of my mind and I go back to it at least once a day, if not more, maybe 3-5 times a day. And I say to myself, whatever that thing is that I want to bring into my life, then that is what I think about and that's what I see and that's what I talk about and that's what I try and manifest. Manifestation is a massive thing. A lot of people do it. Do we all do it the same way? Absolutely not. For me, it's a very personal thing. You're reminding yourself of where you want to be, what you want in your life, and how you want to get it. And they're very important factors because, as we said before, nothing is coming to me. Nothing's coming to me. People aren't coming and saying, hey, Nick, here's this, and hey, Nick, here's that. It's me wanting something and then working out the tools and the pathway to make it happen. Does it always work? No, but I promise you this, 90 to 95% of the time, it does come true. It does come true. Like my radio career, my banking career, all sorts of wonderful things I've done in my life have come to fruition because of that particular method and that particular philosophy.
I love it. I love it. And it's something our listeners can take on as well. And I'm finding this super inspiring, and I'm sure our listeners are as well.
Can we do one more thing though, John? Can we do one more thing on that? Because this is a really big one. I owned a chicken shop in Australia many years ago, and I had not a young lady. She was sort of middle-aged, I suppose you'd say. She was a lovely lady, but she had a very, very traumatic home life. And I'm not going to go into details because it's none of my business, not my place to say anything. But the time that we would spend together, which would be 7-8 hours a day, it got to the point where we had a conversation and she really sort of was drawn to the way I was living my life and the fact that good things happened to me and good things happened to my family and all this sort of stuff. And she asked me the question one day. She said, how do you do it? And I said, what you think about, you bring about, which is not my line, but it's a line I love. And she said, well, what do you mean? So we actually sat down and had a coffee and I said to her, what do you want in your life? And she told me, and I won't reveal what she said. But I gave her this piece of advice and I said, if you do this and it works, do you promise me that you'll convert it to what we're talking about now to what you've just told me? And she said, you know what, I will. I said, okay. I said, I want you to start thinking about anybody taking you out for a coffee. She said, well, what? I said, just think that somebody in the next 5 or 10 days is going to say, hey, let's go for coffee and see what happens. Because she was complaining that nobody ever talks to her and she's got no friends and all this sort of stuff. So I said, give it a go, see what happens. How many days do you think it was before she was invited out for coffee?
Less than 5 or 10 or 5 or 10?
4 days.
4 days.
4 days. And if I could sit here and tell you, and of course it's not verifiable because it could be a load of BS. Of course it can. But within a space of 12 months, she had completely and utterly turned her life around. She'd lost the husband. She'd moved on with her life. She found a really nice guy. And I still keep in touch with her, once, maybe twice a year. And she's in a really healthy, lovely place. And a lot of that stems from those conversations where you where you've got to prove to people that it's real. Yeah, you've got to prove to people that if you do this, it's going to work. And, I can tell you countless stories where I've had those conversations with people and they adopt that mindset and it's amazing what happens.
That certainly is a conversation for greatness that you had and shared with that person, and that made such a difference in her life, and she's got that forever.
Yeah.
That's so great that you're able to give that away and make such a difference to someone. I love that story, mate. Love it. Some of the things you were saying reminded me back in 2006. Do you know why that year is so significant for me?
2006.
It's a bit of a trick question.
No,
it's a needle in a haystack for you, mate. So. That's the year we did the Why Winners Win seminar together.
Oh my goodness. Is that 2006? Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah, that's right.
You said the F word before. I thought Shit a Brick was being quite good.
No, I wasn't pulling you up on your swearing. I just said you go. But I think there's a slight delay because we're across the world.
Oh, okay.
And I for this episode, I thought, look, some people actually want me to swear more. So I thought, when it's
Fuck it,
appropriate,
do it.
or yeah, why the fuck not?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's a problem being an Australian in Canada, because Canadians, they like to sort of say the S word, but the F bomb they're not big on. Yeah, they're not big on the F
okay.
bomb. So and I love it. I drop it all the time at work, everywhere. Not on air, of course. I don't do it on air. I have the mental fortitude not to do that. But yeah, swearing's good. Swearing is therapeutic. I absolutely believe that. Swearing is therapeutic. I love it.
Yeah, there's another good tip as well. So yeah, we're going. What I was saying was, when I said, "Oh, we might have to edit that out," I was thinking about the year 2006, because that was a long time ago.
I know.
But great times as
Yeah,
they are now. But
yeah, yeah.
great times. So for the listeners, Nick and I together, we thought, let's do some work together and make a difference to people. And I had a seminar that I ran called Why Winners Win. Nick loved it. Nick and I did it together. And Nick made some radio ads for it.
And it was a really good concept too. It's a real shame it didn't take off in a bigger way, because, we had grand plans for it. I know we did. We put a lot of work into it, but life gets in the way, eh? And, it was a really good concept. It was a great concept in the fact that Alex would come out and give people the concepts of franchise and the concept of working for yourself, and all sorts of other sort of little knickknacks about how to get on in life. And then, of course, you'd come out and give them the tools to actually get out there and fucking do it. And I love that. It was a really good contrast. And I remember the two that we did, the one at the swimming pool, which was the first one, and then the one we did at the radio station. Yeah, that's right. Edge FM in Wangaratta. Yeah. And we got good response. We got good response from them. They were good. It was a good concept. It was a great concept.
It was one of those things where I think, even though it might not have worked out the way that we thought it did, it actually really did work out. And I still give that talk today. So
yeah, absolutely. So you should, yeah.
It's still alive. And for some of the concepts we talk about, you've got to have a dream, how to create self-esteem, how to distinguish fact from opinion, being prepared to work, perseverance, inspiration, who you associate with, serendipity. So a lot of the things we're talking about today. But I wanted to bring that up again with you, because it was such a good time when we did that together.
And there was a lot of effort put in by you and Alex, because, of course, I was in Wangaratta, and you guys would drive up, and you had that old car at the time. Remember the old
Kingswood
car that you had? Kingswood, yep. Yeah. And I often wondered, when you were late, whether you were going to make it. I mean, it was just one of those things. And yeah, and we had a couple of times at Alex's where we were designing stuff and doing PowerPoints, and and we made that happen. And it was a wonderful time, actually. I look back on those days, and. And you're right. There is something about what we did then, which sort of catapulted me to next level in the way I think about things and in the way that I live my life. And you're a big part of that too, because your philosophy is something that I've taken on board in small amounts. And we're all sort of creatures of little bits of little people. Yeah, there's a lot of people that I've met in my life which I absolutely detest. Now, I don't dislike many people. I can name 3 that I can think of right off the bat. But what I will say is I learnt lots from them. I learned exactly how I didn't want to be with people. Yeah. So you learn from people you like, you learn from people you love, but you also learn from people you dislike. And sometimes you learn more from the people you don't like than you do from the people you do. So
yeah, it reminds me of sporting teams where they often say we learn more from our losses than our wins.
Yeah, well, I actually saw Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran did a speech ages ago, I think. I'm not sure exactly when. And he said that he's learnt more from things he got wrong than he's ever learnt from things he got right. And there's not too many of us that could look back on that particular statement and go, that's a load of bollocks, because it's not. You learn when you're succeeding, when you're going downhill at 1,000,000 miles an hour and everything's working out for you, there's no problems, no bumps in the road. What do you learn? You learn not much. What do you learn when things are not going right? What do you learn when you've lost your job? What do you learn when you're having trouble at work? What do you learn when you're having trouble in a relationship? You learn how to adapt, how to be flexible, how to compromise, you learn how to get through. And 9 times out of 10, you should come through. You do come through with more knowledge and a better person, fingers crossed, yeah?
Yeah, I love that philosophy, Nick. And going back to where we're talking about our Why Winners Win seminar we did together, it really was the journey rather than the destination that was so grand, because we got to spend time together. We had those interesting journeys together, literally, as you say, driving up in my old car to Wangaratta, which I really loved. And yeah, the journey was and still is amazing. And I still think about it. We have those great memories.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
And, it was great because I had two young kids and they loved being a part of it too. The one we did in the swimming pool, they were there. And, I'm sure Amy still remembers. I have spoken to Amy in the past about that particular day and the lead up to the day. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but we were all so engrossed in what we were doing that particular day. We burnt the pizzas. Remember, we had the smoke detectors going off in the house, and like there was just so much shit going on, and we were, fine tuning those PowerPoints, and this was a seminar in a flipping swimming pool. But you, Alex, and I gave it 110%, like we give everything 110%. And you guys were awesome on the night. It was, and I can see it. I can still picture that particular place. It was a wonderful day. It was a wonderful lead up to the day too. It was a wonderful day.
Yeah, it was. It was absolutely fantastic. I think the lesson for everyone is just enjoy what you're doing as you're doing it. And I know we've got plans and we want to manifest greatness and have all the things that we have. I know it's so cliched, but the journey is so important. And even I remember listening to an interview with Jerry Seinfeld, and someone asked him, "What's your biggest regret?" And he said, "My only regret is that I didn't enjoy the experience as it was happening more." Because he had that concerns about getting everything right in the script, and he's looking back, he's going, "Oh my God, what an amazing time!" But I didn't appreciate it at the time. So I guess it's just a little bit of not a wake up call, but a little bit of a reminder to everyone to go, whatever your journey is right now, enjoy it, because you'll probably look back on it and go, "That was pretty good." It's like those good old days. You look back on the good old days, but when you're in it, did you realize it was the good old days?
It is an amazing thing, because if you think about where you are right now, there's all sorts of things you could pick up about it that are wrong. Okay, I don't have enough money. I don't have a nice enough car. I don't live in a big enough house. I don't have this. I don't have that. There are so many things that you can pick holes in. But the difference between people who have that positive mindset and that positive attitude and actually move on.
How good is Nick? Oh my God, that 7-second rule that will save you in so many situations. I love how easy he finds gratitude in everyday things to boost himself, to make him feel great, and to bring positivity into his life and those around him. There's more Nick next week, so we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us on Rise and Thrive, Conversations for Greatness with John Merkus. Remember, you are loved, you are worthy, and you do matter. Embrace the journey of personal growth and motivation. Let's go out there and do something great. Follow or subscribe for more insights and inspiration every Tuesday. Until next time, stay awesome.